It is my great pleasure and extraordinary honor to present Public Counsel's William O. Douglas Award to Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi.
Can you imagine what a hero I'm going to be to my children and grandchildren when they know that you gave me this award? So let's give her such a beautiful round of applause. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence, for honoring me with your remarks. What an honor. Thank you. It was big enough to be getting an honor from Public Counsel, but to be getting it from you makes it delicious. And let's hear it for the Blue Cat Express, who've entertained us. They made it so lovely for us, as well as those of us who served us this evening have been acknowledged again and again. You are I just have to say again that it's such an honor to have Uzo present this award. You are such an inspiration to so many, making women of color and women of color of girls feel seen and heard, not just on our screens, but in many critical conversations in the public square. And congratulations to you and your husband on the birth of your daughter last year. The beat goes on. I also would like to recognize and congratulate my fellow awardees this evening, Mattel and Corporate Achievement Award, and Munger, Tolles, and Olson, for their Pro Bono Award. How wonderful. Congratulations and thank you all for your civic leadership. And speaking of civic leadership, let's applaud our host, Chairman Dan Grunfeld, CEO Chris Jackson, Dinner Chair Bruce Cornmichael, and all of those from Public Counsel. Isn't it wonderful? I have to pause, though, here and say that the surprise for me tonight was to see Fred Nicholas. I have known Fred Nicholas for over 45 years when we all supported Leo McCarthy when he was Speaker of the House. Fred, thank you for your work in establishing Public Counsel and also for being with us this evening. And didn't Tanya do a great job? Bring us all together tonight. Congratulations, Tanya, on your new leadership role as well. So often in government, we say that our responsibility must be to honor the vision of our founders, the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform, and the aspirations of our children. That is exactly what Public Counsel does. All of us are in awe of the work you do, tearing down barriers to legal resources and serving as a tireless voice for the voiceless. As we all know, you don't have rights if you don't have access to counsel. Thank you all for the pro bono work that you all do. Especially patriotic is your Center for Veterans Advancement, which means a great deal to all of us. What you're doing defending our heroes who put their lives on the line to defend us. And particularly moving was to hear about your Children's Rights Project, helping those too young to help themselves and putting them on a path to reach their fulfillment, whether they're girls and women, immigrant children, all of the rest. This is patriotic work and honors the words etched on the edifice of the highest court in the land, already presented by Joe Epstein. I told him I'd be quoting him tonight, equal justice under the law. On behalf of Congress and of our country, thank you, Public Counsel. It is with immense respect and admiration for your leadership that I humbly accept your William O. Douglas Award. And now And how meaningful it is for me to join in such a distinguished and historic group of previous Douglas honorees. Civil rights legend Doris Huerta, whose 90th birthday we celebrated under the dome of the Capitol, and we're blessed to have with us tonight, Doris Huerta. And Elie Wiesel, whom you saw in the film, whose 2012 Douglas Award ceremony I joyfully attended, and it was my solemn privilege to speak at his funeral, so we had those connections. The conscience of the Congress, our beloved John Lewis, who was also in the film, whose funeral I had the honor of hosting at the United States Capitol. But I was brought here by David Johnson and Suzanne, whom I have had the pleasure of knowing and the pleasure of introducing the year he was awarded the Founders Award. Thank you, David. Thank you, Susan, Nora Johnson, for your leadership. I'm also associated, be proud, with the President Clinton and Secretary Clinton, and many, many more who not only made history, but made progress. Now, I want to tell you another personal reason why I'm so thrilled to be with all of you tonight. How thrilled am I? My dear husband, Paul Pelosi, is with me tonight, so he... He doesn't always go out with these things, but this is very special for us. The name of this award, named for Justice Douglas, he was a titan of the Supreme Court. You all know that, whose defense of individual liberties and justice for all will echo throughout the ages. He's probably the most liberal Supreme Court justice we ever had. Following, though, in the footsteps of Justice Brandeis, who paved the way. There's so many distinguished guests here who I am honored to be with. But on this very special occasion, for me, because decades ago, I had the privilege of meeting Justice Douglas. How many of you can make that claim? Probably Fred Nicholas. I was just out of college and working in the office of our newly elected Senator Daniel Brewster of Maryland, and I'm from Maryland, even though I've lived for over 50 years in San Francisco. When the justice visited our office, you have to know he was formidable, officially, physically, personally. I was determined to learn more about his leadership. He was a champion of the environment as a leading conservationist on the Supreme Court. Do trees have standing? Well, not yet, but soon. And he was a member of the board of the Sierra Club. Of course, he was an unsurpassed hero for the right to privacy and civil liberties, especially demonstrated in the Griswold versus Connecticut decision. I mentioned that because it leads the way to so many things. As we all know, in the 7-2 decision written by Justice Douglas, the court ruled that the Constitution did, in fact, protect marital privacy. And then this would lead to further expansion of liberty in the Windsor case and the Ober-Javel decision. Indeed, as we look at Griswold as the bedrock of our right to privacy, even as the current court disrespects this privacy in the Constitution and the precedents of the court, we have work to do. I was in the room for the oral arguments of Ober-Javel as one who proudly voted against Defense of Marriage Act in the 90s. This is now in the teens. By then, I had become the House Democratic leader, and the Republican, well, this isn't partisan, this is civic. The Republicans, no, that's civic. What are we talking about here? The Republicans tried to strip the Supreme Court or the courts of the right to judicial review over DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act. We don't know what marriage they were defending, but nonetheless, DOMA. And we fought them, and you know what they maintained? They maintained that the court did not have a right of review because Marbury versus Madison was wrongly decided. That's what they maintained. So when the oral arguments were taking place, one of the justices asked, did the Republicans know that DOMA was unconstitutional when they passed it? Of course they did. That's why they tried to strip the court of the right to judicial review. Now, in the court, those of you who have argued before the court or attended, you know you cannot move. You sit there. If you adjust your glasses, they think you're going to take a picture of somebody or something. I was ready to jump out of my chair and say, of course they knew. That's why they blah, blah, blah. But nonetheless, we won the case. Another good decision, expanding freedom. America has always been about expanding freedom, from the abolition of slavery, right to vote, right for blacks to vote, right for women to vote. The list goes on, expanding freedom until the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. And Thomas's statement undermining privacy in the Constitution and the precedent of the court also placed in doubt other landmark decisions. The court has so much power over freedoms: environmental freedom, economic justice, integrity of our elections, and including with its horrendous Citizens United decisions. That's why so much now is at stake. I have lived in San Francisco for more than 5 decades, a place where Justice Douglas is revered because of his championing of the environment, civil rights, and so much more. But I grew up in Baltimore, as was mentioned. Thank you for mentioning my dear father. My brother was mayor, too, of Baltimore, so we take great pride that Baltimore is a place where the national anthem was written. My favorite line in the anthem, where I start cheering at the game, is when it sings, gentlemen, gave proof through the night that our flag is still there. And this difficult time, it is our mission to prove through the night that our flag is still there. And it is still there as we pledge each day with liberty and justice for all. Right now, we are engaged in a battle for the soul of our republic and for our fundamental freedoms and for the survival of our democracy. I hope that doesn't sound political. Because this is about patriotism. This is about civics. This is about our Constitution. For the rule of law, one person, one vote, the right to privacy, which Justice Douglas defended, even for truth itself. So if you want to give me the Douglas Award, I have to talk about those things. Sadly, this is a trend not confined to our shores. Across the world, we see despicable, even violent attacks on democracy. Justice Douglas warned us against that. As citizens, we must be vigilant, he said. And this is what he said. As nightfall does not come at once, neither does oppression, he wrote a half-century ago. It is in such twilight that we must be aware of the change in the air, however slight, lest we become victims of the darkness. Preserving our democracy is the task of our time. It is our patriotic duty. The price we pay for citizenship is in the greatest country on earth. You do agree that this is the greatest country on earth, right? And it will require decent people on both sides of the aisle, united by a zealous commitment to our founders' majestic experiment to set aside our differences, to come together, and to defend our freedoms. While we didn't like everything that our founders wrote, we do like that they wrote to amend the Constitution for more freedom. So in the spirit of unity, I'll close my remarks by referencing the words of a Republican president. Teddy Roosevelt. Now, this will sound familiar to you because he spoke of public service as getting into the arena, being a participant, not just a spectator. Well, as public counsel and all the leaders here tonight know full well, being in the arena is not for the faint of heart. Because in the arena, you have to be willing to take a punch. You have to be willing to throw a punch for the children. Thank you, Public Counsel. Just all that you showed us tonight was so inspiring, giving us so much hope. Thank you for your patriotism and for your leadership, which strengthen our nation, which make America more American. And Public Counsel, and thank you again for this distinguished honor, which I will proudly display in my official office on Capitol Hill and treasure for all of my days. God bless Public Counsel, and may God continue to bless America. Thank you all so much.